Thank you very much, Acting Deputy President. I rise to speak on the Better and Fairer Information Management Bill 2024, a measure which seeks to extend the unique student identifier to students across the school sector across this country. Implementing the Unique Student Identifier, or USI, is a reform measure of the former Coalition Government's National School Reform Agreement. The USI is an important part of the Coalition's school reform agenda to drive better student outcomes in Australian schools. It has been in use for higher education and vocational education and training students since 2015. Importantly, allocating a USI to every school student will help provide a better understanding
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Of a student's progress throughout their school life, travelling with them from one school system to another, allowing for the efficient and timely transfer of personal information so that they can be easily identified. Subject to the agreement of Education Ministers, there is also the potential to use a student identifier for a broader range of purposes, such as to support the identification of students who are falling through the cracks, or to target students needing additional support through any part of their school life and their school journey. This could assist with building the evidence needed to deliver improved teaching methods and other measures to support every child's schooling journey. Other issues that it may assist with, subject of course to the appropriate agreements and sanctioned by the Education Ministers, is issues around school refusal, non-attendance or even withdrawal from school. Since 2015, more than 15.6 million USIs have been generated for higher education and vet students. Privacy, of course, is a very important part of this measure. The bill specifies the very limited circumstances where the collection, use and disclosure of information is authorised. The Student Identifiers Registrar and any other entity administering schools' identifiers are also required under the bill to protect this information from misuse or unauthorised access and disclosure. Of course, the ability to identify a student's progress has never been more important. We know that 1 in 3 children is not meeting the expected proficiency standards under NAPLAN, and as a nation we need to do a better job for our teachers and for our students to ensure that every young Australian can reach his or her best potential. We have seen some very concerning NAPLAN results that don't seem to be getting any better, and so I am pleased. We had a very strong reform agenda when we were in government, and I am pleased that the government has picked up this reform measure and is pushing through with it. I do want to raise a number of concerns about the government's reform agenda, though, because while the USI is important, I have raised continuing concerns about the government's proposal, the National School Reform Agreement, because while there are some important reforms in that agreement, I have raised concerns that they don't go far enough and they're not appropriately detailed. And an example of that is in Victoria, and I've very much commended the Victorian government for moving away from balanced literacy or whole language learning to explicit instruction, the explicit teaching of phonics between prep and grade 2. But at the moment, the government is planning to only provide 25 minutes of phonics in the classroom each day, and the evidence overwhelmingly is that that is not sufficient. And so when we see school systems and states and territories, thank goodness, moving to evidence-based teaching and to looking and celebrating and implementing the science of reading and learning, it's incredibly important that It is consistent with the evidence because we don't want this to fail. We don't want the Victorian government to fail. And so making sure that we have all the right reforms in the next school reform agreement is critical. And so I am concerned that there's not an appropriate amount of detail in relation to what those evidence-based reforms should look like and how they should be implemented in the classroom, because we don't want systems implementing measures that they think are appropriate when in fact they don't meet the requisite standards. We are also concerned that throughout the time, and Senator O'Sullivan chaired a very significant inquiry into classroom disruption. We have some of the most unruliest classrooms in the world. Many, many teachers are leaving the profession because of safety fears, and it was a very significant opportunity in this agreement to drive reforms to combat classroom disruption, including to implement a national behaviour curriculum. And it is regrettable that this agreement doesn't go far enough. Those details really do matter. But as I say, this bill implements the USI in Australian schools. It is an important reform measure. It will enable students to be able to move schools or move interstate, to take their information with them, and to ensure that when there are issues in student progress, that support interventions are perhaps more easily able to be implemented. So I do commend this bill to the House, but as I say, we really want to see those additional forms driven in Australian classrooms. And I might end by saying that while we have passed the bill to increase funding for government schools, it is very regrettable that it's now almost the end of November, and for more than 81% of government schools there is still no reform and funding agreement. That means there has been no national reforms delivered, and it is deeply concerning that time is running out. We have to get these reforms in every classroom, in every corner of our country, and we have no agreement. The government has failed to enter into an agreement with New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia and Queensland, and that, as I say, represents more than 80% of government schools. 4 weeks to go and the agreement runs out on the 31st of December. So the Minister set a deadline of the 30th of September. So if the government is serious about driving these reforms, I would say please get on and finalise these funding agreements. This is so important for students, this is so important for teachers, for parents and for our nation. Thank you.
Thank you.